this sense of self, in my experience, the biggest part, the biggest, hugest thing that helped me regain or even create a sense of self has been developing my capacity to feel safe and calm and at peace. Working through hypervigilance, working through anxiety that doesn't allow me to rest at all, and simply being at rest. And again, there is many different techniques that you can use to cultivate this feeling of peace and safety, and whatever word really works for you. Actually, word safety was not working for me at all to start with. The word safety itself felt unsafe. So I had to use words like, feeling held or feeling at home or feeling grounded. Grounded was really working really well for me. So pick the word that works for you and learn to cultivate the feeling of that word. And this is what has helped me. And when I started to feel safe, even just for a minute or two, which was absolutely huge, when I was able to bask and bathe in the essence of, in the feeling of calm, even for a minute or two, I started to feel a bit more whole. And that feeling of wholeness in that place, in the place where I felt like I could always come back to, that place of safety, and like a retreat, an island of safety, they call it in somatic experiencing. When I knew I had it there, and it was a really strong, powerful anchor, and again, you develop that over time. From that place, I could then step out and process the really difficult stuff, and allow myself the space to meet my edge with the painful experiences that I couldn't deal with before, that I didn't have capacity to deal with before. And this is how our capacity gets built. This is how we start to not suffer from our experiences. We learn to be in safety, and we grow in that. And we learn to meet our edge, and we grow in that. One without the other is not regulated, because if we're consistently staying in our safety, there's no growth, but also our world starts to get smaller and smaller. If we're consistently pushing our edge, our nervous system can't cope with that, and that's when we get burnt out and anxious and depressed and everything else. So we need to have both, and that is how, like going to the gym, you have to have your routines to develop different types of your strength, and this is how you develop that nervous system emotional strength. The reason it currently feels like a huge weight to carry, and feeling like I don't know how I will ever work through this, or how will I ever have enough capacity to be with these sensations, is because of the thing I mentioned earlier in the other part of the video, which is called velcroing of emotions or overcoupling of emotions. This happens when an emotion naturally arises to a certain stimulus, and another emotion comes up to protect us from that emotion. In its perception, it's trying to protect us from that emotion. For example, our mother, when we're children, crosses our boundary or does something that really upsets us, or we feel a sense of abandonment or rejection or anything at all, small or big, it doesn't matter. And anger might want to come up to protect our boundary. But we soon might learn that when we do that, our mother rejects us further, maybe even shames us for that anger, or punishes us for it. So that anger, we don't choose it to come up. It comes up as a response. We don't choose our emotions. Our emotions are signals that something is off in our environment. So when it comes up, and we over time learn that it's clearly not safe for it to come up, because when it comes up, we get rejected and we're not loved. Something else might come to say, no, you need to shut down. And that something could be shame, sadness. It could be a fawning response. So instead of feeling anger, embodying anger, you might start to fawn. This could be literally anything, any other emotion that makes sense in that moment. Anger can also be an emotion that overcouples over something else, by the way, right? I'm just giving an example here. So, for example, you could also have a case where feeling sad wasn't safe, right? Every time you cried, your mother would slap you. So sadness, in this case, is this emotion that is unsafe. And so anger could come up to suppress the sadness because it was safer. Or dissociation or numbness. And yet again, when we don't understand what is happening to us in that moment of suffering, we feel like we're going crazy because it's too much. Because these emotions started when you were very, very young, when it was way too much. So when you start to understand and uncouple and look at these things individually and understand, okay, this is what happened. So I wanted to feel this, I felt this, and then this emotion came up to protect me. And when you start to understand and make sense of it, it becomes a lot easier to process it. And you have bigger capacity now as an adult doing these specific exercises. You can develop a bigger capacity to then individually look at these different emotions. Because with borderline, perhaps you had some really toxic, even abusive relationships in your adulthood that caused you to feel worse. But our adult relationships don't really tend to cause borderline. They only can exacerbate current symptoms or something dormant that was already there. But the roots of it will come from childhood. They say that scientists don't know where it comes from, but it's pretty obvious, at least to me, given the nature of this condition and the evidence amongst people that have it, that it's trauma induced. And so we need to look at the roots of that trauma. But that happens at a much later stage in therapy work. The first stage is let's make you feel safe and calm and secure. Let's create an environment where your body and your nervous system can relax. And this is work that primarily you will have to do yourself, but the role of a therapist is to provide guidance and provide you with the tools that you then have to do yourself. But I want to address a little problem with regards to people who have borderline personality disorder and therapy space, and that is that part about merging. Because if you start to feel safe with a practitioner, it's super important to continue to understand the boundaries, because all the while that you still have this pattern of merging and it's subconscious, so you're not realizing that you're doing it, you might start merging with therapists as well and rely on them for your safety. And it's just really important to know that that might happen and to be aware of it and kind of check in with yourself. I can say that the thing that helped me to not have that dependency is to actually have multiple therapists at the same time. I don't mean, working with all of them like the same day, but working with one week, working with another the second week, working with a third week, and kind of rolling on a rolling basis, if you like. Because then your brain starts to understand, at least in my experience it was like that the people in front of me, they all have pretty much the same tools. Of course, they will be different because they're different people. So they will have their own sets of tools, right, from other backgrounds. And so they will be slightly different in how they work. But the whole point is in my internal experience. And having different people in front of me really helped to even further reaffirm that I am the one creating the experience, and I am the one experiencing it, and I am the one going through it. And these people, changing people in front of me, they are there to walk along with me, but they're not walking it for me. And it really actually helped me with a sense of that abandonment, because I wasn't relying on a singular person to provide me with all of my needs in that time of need. I knew I had a whole village of them. Of course, for a lot of people, finances might be a problem. How can I afford a therapy every week? Even if it's with 3 different therapists, it doesn't really matter. You can be paying the same money if you had one therapist every week, right? But maybe you can't have a therapy every week. Then you need to develop or create a network of other people in your life that can help you through this time. Friends, family, starting to do hobbies that support your sense of well-being, going out into nature, listening to good music that helps you move your body, yoga, anything at all that you feel supports you. But most importantly, people. You can't substitute people with a yoga session. Coming back to the start of this conversation, when dealing with, in my opinion, the vast majority of mental health disorders, we need to really start to reframe how we perceive them. Because if emotions and mood are a consideration, then the body needs to be a consideration. The nervous system has to be a consideration. And so somatic work needs to be in place to help people heal these conditions. And again, just as a reminder, if I have said that already, your emotions, well, I did say that part. Emotions are not the problem. The problem, okay, let's put it this way. Emotions are like a body of water, sea, ocean. To feel safe to traverse these waters, because they will always be there anyway. You can't escape them. The water will always be there. So to be able to feel safe to traverse these waters, you need to have an island of safety to land on for rest and digest. And you need to have a big enough ship that will keep you safe in case of a storm. And that ship consists of a anchored sense of self, healthy relationships, and a healthy nervous system, which includes a tool belt or toolkit that is always available to you in times of need. That is how you build a big enough ship to feel safe. And actually not just feel safe, but actually enjoy going through the waves. That doesn't mean that you will forever feel that intoxicating shame. Doesn't mean that you will be feeling this chronic guilt or this rage that it just seems to be bottomless. These things shift as you go along on this journey. That's not what I mean when you say that you will always feel emotions, because what you're feeling right now is an overwhelm of emotions. which is how you would feel if you had a tiny little boat or no boat at all going into an ocean, right? The perspective is massively different. And this is, again, maybe would be like kind of the last part of what I want to say, is that what I've learned in this process, not cognitively but experientially, is that instead of trying to fight your emotions and trying to make them stop or go away and feeling like you are degrading or going backwards, or you're just getting worse when they start to get bigger, instead of feeling this way, recognize that they're just trying to talk to you, and they're doing it in the best way they currently know how. And if you can start to build a relationship with your emotions, you will be able to start learning a new language in which to communicate with them, which means that they will not need to be screaming and yelling at you in the ways that they do now. And in the process of somatic work, this is what we're learning to do. How do I communicate with myself? How do I meet the needs that are being communicated to me by my emotions? And what is currently stopping me from meeting those needs? When you do that, you don't feel the need anymore to associate yourself with a condition of borderline or any other condition, as a matter of fact. You simply know that this is all a part of your experience. But you cannot do it with a dysregulated nervous system, with an overwhelmed nervous system and psyche. If you've been watching this and you're someone who has this experience of having borderline, I just want you to remember that borderline personality disorder is simply a label put on top of a conglomerate of symptoms. Borderline personality disorder as a thing is not the cause for your symptoms. It is more like if you were to put all of your symptoms in a bag, the bag would be called borderline personality disorder. But it's not the thing that put those things in a bag. So when you're experiencing these dysregulating states, it is helpful to start to move away from the idea of labeling yourself as someone who has this condition, because it reinforces the sense of shame. Instead, start to practice to swap that identification with questions. What am I experiencing right now? What are the beliefs that I'm carrying because of this thing right now? Write these things down. Always best to have them on paper rather than in your head. There's a whole bunch of inquiry that you can do, but whatever you do, try to move away from these labels. And of course, they come up also for a reason. It's a part of you trying, your psyche trying to gain control. I get it. I was there. I get it. But it's just like just keep it at the back of your mind. And if you can get this kind of help in the form of this somatic therapy, I've kind of experienced and explored different types of somatic therapy. Honestly, embodied processing is the gentlest form of therapy that I know of, that is also effective. Which is probably why I've decided to certify in that, because the immense benefits that I have gotten from it were just amazing. And I didn't know that it would help me with these kind of symptoms. It just came as a byproduct of developing a sense of self. So if you can get yourself a somatic practitioner, whether it's embodied processing or maybe somatic experiencing, or EMDR is supposed to be good, but I've heard that it's a little bit harsher on your brain and your nervous system, or maybe compassionate inquiry. So these are all different varieties of somatic work, and it's not a bad idea to experiment. Get a few sessions of each and really see what works the best for you. But just in the end, just stick with something and really stick with it, because this is not going to change in a month or 2 or 3. Okay, it took me probably, I had massive shifts almost every session. I had massive shifts from the very, very start. But kind of in hindsight, I can see that it took me about a year to really start to ground myself properly. But every single session I had was like a step on a ladder towards that. And I had to go through all of it. And every session, every step of the ladder was like a new insight, a new shift, a tiny little change in the way I feel. And it all added up, and it was all really noticeable. But it took me a year to feel grounded, and I've been doing this now for over 2 years, and every single time there's a new layer that gets like peeled and uncovered and understood. So yeah, after some time, it's not really a therapy anymore. It becomes a lifestyle, and not like a perpetual I need to heal myself lifestyle, but rather I want to get to know myself better lifestyle, because this relationship that I have with myself is the most important one I'll ever have. And I'm enjoying it, and I want to have a better quality of life. And that is why I'm doing it, rather than I'm broken, I need help. You might be at that stage right now, and that's totally fine. But just know that that's not how you will always feel forever. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you have any questions at all, please ask them. If you want to book a free call to ask more questions or find out more about this therapy or my own personal experience, just book that free call or message me on Instagram. However you would prefer to get in touch, send me an email. If I can support you even just with some advice or direction, I would be happy to do that. Otherwise, I hope this video was somewhat helpful and insightful for you. So yeah, let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you in the next one.